Hi, I'm Kate Winter, and for my data collection and analysis project, I asked the question, how many times have you eaten fast food this month with the population of adults versus minors? So here is the data set that I collected with 25 values for each population. When I collected the data, I used a diverse selection of methods such as Instagram and Reddit. And for potential bias and error, I used multiple methods, which was one way of ensuring to minimize bias and to ensure randomization. And the most common form of bias I found was non-response bias, especially with my methods of Instagram and Snapchat. With random error, in order to eliminate that, I kept rereading all my data to make sure that none of the data I inputted was incorrect. Here is the 5-number summary for both populations. And for the adults, we can see that for the mean, it's much higher than that of the minors, while they both have the same median. With the standard deviation, the adults again have a higher standard deviation than the minors. Both had the minimum of 0. For the first and third quartiles, the adults had higher, with 4 versus 1 and 7 versus 6, with the maximum for being 30 for the adults and 15 for the minors. The interquartile range was low for the adults at 3, and for the minors it was high at 5. The lower limit was 0.5 for adults and negative 6.5 for minors. The upper limit was also lower for adults at 11.5, and the minors had a higher upper limit at 13.5. And there were 3 outliers for the adults at 0, 0, and 30, and 1 at 15 for the minors. This is the box and whisker plot. The adults is much thinner than the minors. Here we have the frequencies for both corresponding populations. We also have the relative frequency for the adults and minors. Here's a histogram for both categories. The adults have a little more variance versus the minors. And the pie charts. And for the dot plots, we have the highest at 30 and 15, and the adults are a little bit lower and less spread out above versus the minors. They're more around. And the stem and leaf plots. The minors rarely were able to go past 10, whereas adults went into the 30s. And based on that, I can conclude that based on the following data that has been collected, adults have eaten fast food more times this month than minors.